tell you a little bit about my military startings. And like a lot of vets, we sign up out of high school. Um, we don't know what we want. We don't know what we're going to do. We just somehow, we end up in the military, and 2, 5, 10, 20 years later, there you go. So, back in '86, I was living up in Rochester, Michigan, and they came to the school, and they just the, there was the ASFAB. They had to sign up to take the ASFAB, and I was like, well, what the heck, right? So I did it. It took a little bit. I had awesome scores, yay, and um, a couple weeks later, a recruiter calls me. First, it was a Marine recruiter. They called me, and well, I can tell you what, when a beautiful woman recruiter from the Marines comes, your eyes get big, and you're full of lust, and you just think, wow, this is what the Marines like. And luckily, I came to my senses, and I did not sign up for the Marines. Um, I really, as a senior in high school, I didn't really have a great knowledge of the world. And what do I do? Well, for about 10 years, my family had a very small restaurant in Kentucky. And I was like, well, I didn't, I looked at all the stuff, but I really didn't know what I was looking at. So I took, I signed up for 4 years to be a cook. I knew I was tired in high school. I just really couldn't focus, ADD, ADHD. So I signed up in the delayed entry. I was going to get a $4,000 bonus and get whatever it was, 20,000 for college after I was done. And so I graduated in May. 2 months later, um, I my mom took me to Louisville, and off I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for 2 months. We did basic out there, and I was in Charlie 5-3. We are Charlie 5-3. We're the best that we can be, yay! And you get in all those hoorahs. And one thing that was very unique was that in the building that we were in, we shared it. They called it the Fat Farm. Okay, and this is one thing that they don't tell you back when you sign up, is that you actually got to pass a shortened version of the PT test to get into basic training. And if not, oh, by the way, they own you. Don't forget that. You didn't sign a contract. They own you. So I think we had to do 13 push-ups there. We had, we were in the in processing center for a couple days, and it was so lovely. It was so calm, and nobody, they just, okay, like, guys, we're gonna go over here, and we're gonna get you some uniforms. We're gonna get you some boots, and you're like, man, this is awesome. I'm gonna love this army thing. This is just great. And so this one day, they came in and said, hey, you got to do some push-ups. Like, okay. So we get down, and I think it was 13. So boom, boom, boom. Knock out 13. And like a lot of people, I had been doing push-ups and I've been running a lot, in the 6 months prior. So, I wouldn't be in just total shock going into basic training. So, we got through, and okay, they're like yes or no. Question is, well, what if you don't pass, right? What happens? Well, they have a special unit just for you, okay? And they call it the Fat Farm. So, one of the funny stories about that was that one of the drill sergeants was actually, he had been Mr. Missouri for a couple years, right? It's like 6'4", and I mean, he his biceps were as big as your legs, and you're 18 and everything, and you're intimidated, and really every day you sit there, and you when we go out into the back area of the building, they call it a quad because it was just a big square, and all the companies would do their morning PT in this area. So each had room to everybody could spread out at arm's length. There was no bumping into each other. As in the front of the building, really there was no grass. It was just all concrete where you had your formations. And you would look over and you would see these guys doing PT. And while we were trying to do the proper kind of PT, we had to do these various calisthenics. They were doing we're trying to kill you calisthenics. I mean, so they would, you never knew what they were going to be doing. And I mean, it's like we would go out for 15 minutes and do our exercises on the, then we would run, or we would just do like a half hour of push-ups, set-ups, and jumping jacks, whatever. And we would go in. Well, they would still be out there. Okay. And you couldn't be obvious about everything, but you kind of look out the corner of your eye and you see these guys, and some of them should never have signed up. They had some nice big fat bellies, like mine, except for they were 18 years old, signed up for the service. And obviously they got passed because somebody had to make some numbers. So some recruiters out there, they lied. Okay, just straight up. They just forged some numbers in there to get you in, to tell you everything's going to be fine. Don't worry about it. They'll work with you. No, they'll work you into the ground. Okay? And the thing is these guys did PT every morning when everybody else was out there, except for they did it a little longer. And then they would come back and they would do it again that night. So once a week, they would do a PT test, right? And so if you passed whatever requirements they had at the time, which I think at this point it was a full PT test, and once they passed the full PT test, then they would go and they would get processed in with the next unit and go on through basic training, or they would stay for another week. And I will tell you what, anytime you would see them out there, your heart would go out, because these guys, they got abused. I mean, they're all the name calling you can imagine for being overweight, for not being as strong. Some people just, they just never had that life. And, you got to commend them. They signed up to go into the service, or they got lied to and conned into it, as some of it goes. But these guys just 7, I mean, and they did this 7 days a week. Okay, mind you, that the unit wasn't that big. There might have been 30 to 40 people in that unit entirely. So it wasn't, we had, I think our units most units had around 60 people. We each had 4 squads of about 10 people. So I don't know, we might have had 100 people in ours. They weren't that big. I think they had one platoon. But 7 days a week, these guys were out there working to get the weight off and pass a PT test, just so they could start to go into basic training. Now, as my understanding is that every basic training facility had a unit for this. So I can only imagine those that didn't know what they was getting into, didn't know they needed to be in shape before they got to basic. So these guys, every day we would see them out there, and boy, your heart would just go out to them, because when they would do PT, rifle PT, and I was never a PT kind of guy. There's some people, they love PT, right? PT, boom, there they go, they're out, and I mean, they just love, having them rocks shoving up in your hands while you're doing push-ups, and whatever else your knees are digging in the ground, and you're doing set-ups. Somebody's holding your feet and you're going down, and all those rocks just digging into your back. And some people just love that to death. Let me tell you, some people love that to death. Not me. No, 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 don't, no. Um, so the worst thing that I could ever see was when you had to do rifle PT. And I forget the exercise, what they call it and everything, but boy, let me tell you something. You would take that, you get your M16 out there and you'd be holding it, and you would start down and you would go 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'd be bringing that thing from your legs up 90 degrees, straight up, back out and down. And you know, the M16 is a lightweight rifle, but you know, it's just like that joke with the broomstick, right? Yeah, that broomstick weighs a pound, right? Hold it out at arm's length and see how long you can hold it before you drop it. Usually it's like 2 minutes. Well, this is more than one of those broomstick. This is more than one broomstick. And the M16 is more than one broomstick, right? So what would happen is during the exercise, they would slow it down. So you would be coming up here and holding it. And then you come up here, okay, oh, come back. You know, they would just wait for one. To me, that was the worst PT you could do. I did not like, it was all worse, but that was the absolute worst. And these guys would do that almost every day, right? So if you're one of those guys and you went through I don't know, we all called it the fat farm, right? And it was, and let me tell you something. There was always the threat that if you didn't pass your PT test, you were going to the fat farm and you was going to start over. So if you didn't have the motivation that you needed to get your exercise in gear, that was, because let me tell you something. That drill, so the fat farm, they had the one drill sergeant who had been Mr. Missouri a couple years, and so he was authorized more time to work out. So there's certain allocations in the military for people who are world ranked athletes, and sometimes you would get pulled out from your job totally to concentrate, as long as you maintain ranking in like the top 5 or something. So he had been authorized a lot of time to bodybuild, but there was another guy. There was a white guy. At this time, you know, it's been 40 years. That's all I remember, and he wasn't as big, but boy, he was sure big. And you know, when you're out there and you're a young 18-year-old kid and you got somebody that's up here, and I mean, they can just grab your neck and just break it with one hand, you get pretty scared. Don't lie. I can't lie. You just dread. It hurt us watching them because we know what they went through. So if any of you guys had to go through that experience, or you know what I'm talking about, give me some comments down below. Every year, about 20,000 new recruits go through Army basic training. So I want to thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoy some of the stories. Like, follow, subscribe. This is the channel, at Tiger Channel, Tiger with a Y. All right? So love to hear from you, and hopefully, you know, I know we got a lot of good vets out there, so hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.